Welcome, and thank you all for joining us on this very special series of the Crexi Podcast, an insider's look at all things commercial real estate. I am your host, Shanti Ryle, Director of Content at Crexi, and this is the Women of Influence series, delivering next-level insights and expertise live from GlobeSt's Women of Influence conference. And today we are thrilled to sit down with Amber Brandhagen. A little bit about our guest. Amber Brandhagen has 10 years of commercial real estate experience and is the COO and principal of NAI Global Wireless. She has completed in excess of $200 million in lease sales and related transactions throughout the United States and manages approximately $50 million of real estate assets. In addition, Amber facilitates the real estate process from initial contact through transaction closing and account closeout. She manages contract administration, due diligence, marketing, social media, and data management. Wow, that's a lot. Amber is also on the leadership board at NAI Global, where she serves as secretary, and the chairperson for the Women's Alliance at NAI Global. Amber, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
How excited are you to be here at Women of Influence?
Yeah, this is my second year. I'm very excited. You know, it's in my backyard, so it's an hour drive up. So yeah, it's great reconnecting with some of the ladies I met last year. So
Absolutely.
It's going to be a great event.
What are you most excited about?
Just reconnecting, networking. That's my thing.
Making friends.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
And
I love
there's some really great speakers, so I'm very excited to hear Tanya and some others speak tomorrow on the panels.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's always an interesting... I just love the level of conversations that this conference brings and how, varied it is, but nuanced and in depth. And like you said, the connections that you make here. Already, this is my first conference, and already I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to be friends with all these women and keep working with them. This is so fun. So love it. I wanted to kick us off. I gave a little bit of a bio on your background, but how did you first get involved in commercial real estate? What drew you in about it? And yeah, can you tell us a little bit more just about your story in your own words?
Of course. My story is definitely different. I graduated and I moved to Southern California, where I was a manager at a fitness center. And I was doing that for a couple years, working 12-hour days. And I had, the certain members coming in every single day. And, you build these relationships with them. And his name is David Moore. He's my business partner, but he was coming in every day. And he eventually approached me and was like, I love your work ethic. I want to bring you on board. Come work for me. And I was like, I don't understand commercial real estate. I have no background, no college degree. And I definitely don't understand wireless. And he said, I will teach you everything. Just come on board. I see great potential. And I did. So that was in 2014. I jumped on board. And through 10 years, now we are 50-50 partners, and we launched our own firm back in 2020, NAI Global Wireless, and it has just taken off.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. What do you think it was that he saw in you that made him just all in? I want you with me on this journey.
Probably my work ethic. I'm very outgoing, and I'm very driven. And he got to know me as an individual as well. So we became friends, and his family is like my family. My kids call him Uncle David. So yeah, we've became very close over the years. And I think it was just, he saw something, and if you ask him, he'll go on and on telling the story behind it. But yeah, I'm very grateful that whatever he saw, he took me on board.
I mean, I think it's true for a lot of us in the sector that, especially those of us who found it by accident, that someone said, hey, I see you. Let me teach you the things that you don't know. You already have a lot in you that doesn't need to be taught or is innate, and just gave you the opportunity to really, hit the ground running and create something that's clearly been extremely successful for you. So he was already in wireless when you got started, sounds like.
Yeah, he has 45 plus years in commercial real estate, but he started the platform in 2008 in wireless. Okay. So he had been going for a couple years at that point. So when I came in, he's old school. And so he had, stacks of leases on his desk, and he just handed them to me and said, start analyzing, start reviewing, create rent, spreadsheets, and start learning, because they're very homogenous.
Sure.
sell
Yeah,
lease agreements
they
are.
all do the same thing, right?
So I quickly learned, but, I just jumped on board and, I wasn't going to let the opportunity pass me by, that's for sure.
Yeah, especially working 12-hour days. So you're
And I
like,
didn't have to do that anymore.
yeah, I can take vacations.
Yes.
I love it. So I'm curious, kind of early on in your career, as you're hitting the lease forms, just learning as much as you can, do you have any, key transactions that maybe taught you like really important lessons, or any obstacles or challenges that you encountered that, finding a way around it, you felt like really leveled you up, that you can share as a story? It's okay if not.
No, nothing that comes to mind. My biggest obstacle, though, when I first started out, was being taken seriously. Being a young 24-year-old in a very male-dominated office, they always considered me David's assistant, and that was very hard. So I was like, I've got to prove them wrong and really hustle, and look where I'm at now. So, but that was my biggest obstacle coming in, is, being taken seriously.
Absolutely.
And
if you have that
gaining
fire,
respect.
absolutely, and having that fire in your belly, I'm sure you're just like, I'm not going to let
Absolutely.
you think I'm just an assistant. No way. I own half this business now.
Yes, absolutely.
I love it. I love it. So I'm curious. I really want to get into the wireless side of things, because it's such a niche sector in commercial real estate, but it is so essential. So for our listeners, we've never had somebody who focused on kind of like telecoms on our podcast before. So can you give us kind of just like a brief history, bird's eye view of the sector, what makes it so unique? Just paint a picture for us.
Absolutely. So I am a wireless landlord representative. So I only assist property owners with cell and billboards. So we do billboards as well.
Okay.
And that is anywhere from having a tenant such as Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile approach you and say, we want to, lease this part of land, or maybe even a rooftop, and you have a brand new lease agreement. And so we come in, negotiate, and make sure that lease agreement is, market terms and conditions, because they're very one-sided. And then we also specialize in lease amendments. There was a lot of 5G upgrades occurring, and we had a big influx of lease agreements, lease amendments that we had to do. And right now, this year, the buyouts, you can sell the assets, and you do that via an easement agreement, and then you can use that money, pay the capital gains, or turn it into a 1031 tax-deferred exchange. So there's a lot of opportunity there, and a lot of people don't understand it. So we are really the only known brokerage firm across the country that does it, and we work in all 50 states. We've completed transactions in 34 states so far.
Wow.
And we have 40 transactions ongoing at any given time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we're very,
That's
very
insane.
busy.
That's so many transactions at once.
Yes.
And what size team are you, if I may ask? Like
Under 10. It's a very small.
you have 10 people
Yes.
managing all of that.
Yes.
That's amazing. So I'm very curious, just in terms of like, I feel like it's always kind of on topic, like you said, we recently all upgraded to 5G, and that was a big buzzword among all these telecom companies. I know fiber is something that's getting like really crazy, just in terms of connectivity upgrades. I'm curious, so what is kind of the thinking in terms of these big telecom clients acquiring all this existing land, or not land, I should say, but these towers, these billboards, these assets that were otherwise owned by landlords previously? What is kind of the strategy that you see, or what, if you can give us a bird's eye view of what the thinking is, that it's more in their favor to own it versus just rent it from this landlord?
Well, it's all Wall Street money. So they like to build their portfolios and then they sell them off. But, it's just creating that portfolio for them. But they have to do it for continuity, right? Like they have to keep connecting. Because think about in your own home, how many devices do you use for Wi-Fi?
Dozens.
I mean, I have kids and iPads and the doorbell, and, people have their cars, and there's just so many things that chime in that all the infrastructure is just overloaded all the time. So the companies really need to keep upgrading and building out so that, you know, you're not dropping calls. And I know some people are listening like, I need a cell tower in my backyard because I have awful service. And so
I could use a 5G box, just putting that out there into the ether.
Right. And so there's that. But when it comes to them buying them, it's just a Wall Street play. They're just building their, you know, portfolios and their balance sheets.
So it's less so a matter of they want to own it versus they just need to have that connectivity on lock regardless. And it sounds like there's kind of almost an imperative to do that. And that's forecasted out for quite a while because there's only going to be more devices on these networks, more people using them. I'm curious, what challenges do you see for these companies that could get in the way of that growth?
The cost of funds. Finding, you know, during COVID, it was really hard. Everything was, you know, locked down and they couldn't get the equipment. They could not do the upgrades. They could not do those things. That was the biggest hiccup that we had seen so far. But otherwise, I mean, they've got their act together and there's not really many obstacles that we come across, really.
Sure.
You know, they have great teams.
That sounds like a great work environment.
Oh, absolutely. And we've become very well known by the tenants and the tower companies that, you know, there's a level of respect there that they know that we're just doing the best by our clients.
Absolutely.
But we can call and say, hey, this is what's going on. And, you know, we get more honesty out of them and really what's going on behind the scenes and why they are structuring a deal specifically that way. So it's been great.
That's awesome. So kind of, you know, forecasting ahead, looking to the rest of the year, 2025, what are your top like long tail predictions for your particular niche? What do you see? Is it more of the same of them buying up these properties? Is it like more build out of these that aren't existing already? What are the big trends that are really catching your eye?
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on right now. T-Mobile's buying US Cellular. So we're going to see some consolidation there and some decommissioning of US Cellular sites too, if there's already a T-Mobile site. So we saw that with the T-Mobile and Sprint merger. A lot of Sprint sites got decommissioned. So we're going to see that. Dish may be filing for bankruptcy, and you know, Dish was the fourth carrier, but they're having a very hard time rolling out that infrastructure. So we're predicting that we might see a bankruptcy, but they are also just laying low right now. There's not a ton of build out, there's a ton of upgrades. And then 6G, we were just listening on another call, and 6G is probably early 2027.
Okay, so there's some time still.
So there's a lot of 5G upgrades still occurring across the nation. But before that's even fully realized, we're going to have 6G rolled out. And so they're always going to be upgrading, and there's a ton of opportunity for landlords to get a pay point for existing leases that don't have adequate use clause that allows for those upgrades. So our clients are allowed a pay point for that.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And is there anything, a little bit of a tangent, just from like a market perspective, do you see any key differences in different states that you work in, based on like different regulations that might impact how those upgrades are being handled? Or
not necessarily. When I started, we were seeing 3% escalators or 15% per term. They're really dialed back now. They really only want 2% per year or 10% per term. So we're seeing those come down, and the rent proposed is lower than what we're normal like seeing. So
it sounds like they're being a little more cautious.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Things are fluctuating.
Absolutely.
So it totally makes sense. Now, I know we're running up on time, but I did want to touch a little bit on, you know, your roles on the leadership board and the Women's Alliance at NAI Global. So can you talk a little bit about, you know, what your role looks like on each of these, and you know, what about serving on those boards like really inspires you? Like, what do you want to give back to other people in NAI Global with your work, with these kind of like within organizations?
Yeah, so NAI Global is has over 300 offices in the world, and for me being on the board, we are just focused on, you know, membership and creating, you know, a continuity amongst all the members and being a great resource. So we are focusing on subcommittees to really focus on different aspects of membership. And I'm not sure how much I can share in that regard,
Sure.
you know? So,
Yeah, totally.
but for me, just having a voice, I believe I'm the youngest on the board right now, and being a female, serving as secretary after only serving on the board for a year was a huge accomplishment for me. And you move up every year. So next year I will be vice chair, and then the year after that I will be chair. So I'm very excited.
Amazing.
So I'm very
so
excited for that,
cool.
and to just see the growth and just everything that's going on within NAI Global. I mean, I love the network, so I support it.
There's a lot of great people there.
Yes.
That I've had the fortune to meet. It's really awesome. Kind of wrapping up, I guess, it's really admirable that you've been able to, prove yourself and like kick butt and make your way to these positions. So I guess what advice would you have, or what takeaways do you want to leave our listeners with in terms of advice on, how to advocate for yourself, or work ethic? What would you want our listeners to take away from your journey and your career path?
I think number one, if you're starting out in commercial real estate, is finding a mentor. I believe that is key. I would not be where I'm at today if I did not have a mentor. And finding a mentor that is willing to invest their time, and also setting up monthly calls or even weekly calls to do, check-ins and find out, feedback and just learning from your mentor. I think that is key. Another thing I just thought is don't be afraid of failure. That's, we're always a little nervous of that, but, people will say,
human.
Yeah,
You got to
exactly.
own it. I love it. Great words of advice. I really appreciate you sitting down with us, Amber. I'm going to go look up all this wireless stuff happening because I think it's so interesting.
Yes, it's
But
fascinating.
I would love to, leave our listeners with a way to get in touch with you if they're curious about NAI, about your expertise in particular. Where can they get in touch?
Absolutely. So I am on LinkedIn. I'm really big about LinkedIn. So you can find me, Amber Brandhagen, on LinkedIn, or you can go to our website, www.naiglobalwireless.com.
Love it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Really appreciate it.
Of course.
And thank you, everyone who tuned in today. If you enjoyed this episode of the Women of Influence series, do not miss the next one. Visit www.crexi.com/podcast to sign up to get the next episode delivered straight to your inbox. And you can also go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Crexi, to find video recordings of each episode. Take care and be sure to tune in next time.